7 words just shut down the entire global oil market. Iran said them. Trump responded with 2. And right now, every barrel of oil on Earth is being repriced in real time. If you want to understand what's actually happening before it hits your gas bill, stay with this and hit subscribe now so you don't miss the daily update. Here is what nobody is connecting. OPEC is not just losing members, it is losing its reason to exist. The UAE has signaled it may reconsider its production commitments. Saudi Arabia is quietly pumping above its own agreed ceiling. And Iran, the country Trump publicly declared is in a, quote, state of collapse, just held a press conference, a uniformed military spokesperson, cameras, microphones, announcing they are at, quote, full operational readiness. 2 things cannot both be true at once. But here is the terrifying part. They might be. If you're just tuning in, subscribe and turn on notifications. This situation updates every single day, and yesterday's analysis is already outdated. Let's go to the numbers, because the numbers are where the real story lives. 6. That is how many commercial vessels are currently transiting the Strait of Hormuz on any given hour, down from a global norm that used to run well above 100 active passages per day. 6 ships. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard has not formally closed the strait. They do not need to. Shipping insurance premiums have done it for them. Captains are rerouting. Cargo is being delayed. And 20,000 seafarers are currently stranded in regional ports, not because of a war, but because of the credible threat of one. Goldman Sachs put a $90 per barrel floor on oil within 60 days if Iranian export pressure continues. Kappler Research is tracking Iranian storage reserves. And according to their latest data, Iran has between 12 and 22 days of viable export capacity remaining before internal pressure forces a decision. A real one, not a press conference, a decision. That countdown is running right now. That is not an abstraction. That is a ticking clock, and the hands are moving. Now, here's what makes this paradox genuinely unprecedented. Both sides have documented their own leverage. Trump's team is pointing to satellite imagery of emptying Iranian storage facilities. Iran's military is pointing to active IRGC patrol routes in Gulf waters. Both pieces of evidence are real. Both cannot produce the same outcome. Someone is about to be proven catastrophically wrong. And the Strait of Hormuz is the place where that proof arrives. There is a subplot here that almost no analyst is discussing. The supreme leader of Iran, the figure whose existence Trump has publicly questioned, the invisible hand that controls whether any negotiation succeeds or collapses, has not spoken in 11 days. No statement, no broadcast, no intermediary. In a country where silence from the top is itself a political signal, 11 days is not a pause. It is a message. The question is who it is being sent to. Meanwhile, the GCC emergency session convened in Riyadh produced a joint statement so carefully worded it said nothing. The UN called for restraint. The International Maritime Organization issued an advisory. Every multilateral institution designed to prevent exactly this scenario activated their standard protocol, which is to say, they sent emails. 3 women were sentenced to death row in Iran this week for participating in street protests over fuel prices. That sentence ran 4 lines in international media and disappeared. It should not have disappeared. It is the human face of what happens when a government runs out of economic options and runs out of patience simultaneously. Iran's revised nuclear proposal, the one that has been referenced in back-channel communications but never formally published, is expected to surface publicly within the next several days. When it does, it will either validate Trump's state of collapse framing, meaning Iran blinked, or it will contradict it entirely, meaning the pressure campaign has hardened rather than softened the regime's position. There is no middle outcome here. One of the 2 dominant narratives about this crisis will be demolished by that document. Every actor in the region knows this. That is why the GCC statement said nothing. That is why shipping lanes are emptying. That is why gold purchases in Tehran have surged 40% in 3 weeks, and property transactions have nearly stopped. Populations feel what governments will not say. Saudi Arabia is caught in a structural trap it cannot escape cleanly. They need oil above $85 to balance their Vision 2030 budget. They also need regional stability to attract the foreign investment Vision 2030 requires. Those two needs are now in direct conflict. Higher prices require tighter supply, which requires OPEC discipline, which requires Iran to remain inside the tent. But Iran exiting the tent, through sanctions, through conflict, through collapse, also produces a price spike. Saudi Arabia wins the price either way. Saudi Arabia loses the region either way. That is not a comfortable position to sit in. Before the Iranian proposal goes public, share this analysis, because once it drops, the media cycle moves too fast for context. Subscribe now to get our daily breakdown the moment it matters. Every comment you leave is read, and the sharpest analysis gets featured. Here is what you should think about before the next update. First, if Iran's revised proposal signals capitulation, does that stabilize oil markets, or does it create a new power vacuum in Gulf waters that becomes equally destabilizing? Second, if Saudi Arabia breaks fully from OPEC production discipline to capitalize on elevated prices, does that permanently end OPEC as a functional cartel? And what replaces it? Third, the invisible leader has been silent for 11 days. When he speaks, will it be to accept terms, reject them, or redefine them in a way that neither Washington nor Riyadh has modeled for? Leave your answer below. The most substantive analysis gets highlighted in tomorrow's update. And if this breakdown gave you something the headlines didn't, subscribing takes 3 seconds, and it means you won't be the last person in the room to understand what happens next.